I met Emily Wilson when I was a junior in high school. I was 17, a geek, tall and skinny. She was 15 and had just transferred into our district as a freshman. She was not, by the standard of models and cheerleaders, beautiful. She was slightly overweight, had a minor case of acne, and had glasses. Now that I say all of that, I saw something there that I still have trouble explaining. Her smile was as big as all outdoors. It lit up the area she was in. Behind the glasses were the most intense blue-green eyes that were capable of making you melt or flame out. Her red hair and white skin made you think of a stereotypical Irish maiden. Her voice was soft and musical. She was pleasant, easy to talk to, and friendly to everyone. I first saw her when my math teacher asked me to become an algebra tutor for students that were having trouble or requested additional help. Emily was one of the 6 people that had asked to have a tutor. The group met after school 3 afternoons a week. I was given class credit and an hourly wage that was equal to the minimum wage. I would have done it without those benefits, as the brain exercise was fun. I had use of our family van, so while the school buses did not run after the session was over, I could take everyone home. Emily lived about a city block from where I did, so she was always the last one to be delivered home. We had many interesting talks. There was something that attracted me to her. It took me about half of the semester to realize that I was interested in getting to know her better. She was not the most outgoing, and I had to work to get any personal information. I discovered she was not allowed to date until she became 16. She was not allowed to have boys in her home until she was 16. She told me she was afraid to introduce me to her family because her dad was overprotective. I finally convinced M, as I called her, to introduce me to her family. Her mother was, and still is, a gem of the first quality. Her father, while giving the outward appearance of a stern taskmaster, was just a very loving parent trying to do what he thought was best for his daughter. They both told me how they appreciated my help with Emily's schoolwork. Emily and I started officially dating on her 16th birthday. We had gone on group outings and school functions before, but because of her home restrictions, we were never allowed to have less than 2 other people with us. Even so, we were definitely considered matched by all of our friends and most of the school population. I gave Em a small locket for her birthday, and we went out to a fine restaurant for a fancy dinner. She told me that she had fun and wanted to start going places and doing date things with just the 2 of us. I took her to my junior prom. She was the most beautiful and youngest lady there. We dated all through my senior year, but had talked about what we would do after I graduated. We knew that I wanted to go to college, and my main choices were several hundred miles from where we lived. Em told me that because of the distances, she felt that we should not commit to being exclusive while she was home and still in high school. She said that if we were meant to be together, we would find each other when the time was right. I was not sure what she was getting at, as I thought that we would still be together forever. I finally realized that it was a moot point, because my parents could not afford to make up for the differences in the costs of college that were not covered by the scholarships I was awarded. I joined the Army right after graduation. I saw it as a way to complete my goals without going into life-altering debt. I was fortunate that the 2 scholarship committees agreed to allow me to defer the scholarships for no more than 6 years while I completed my military commitment. Emily and I said goodbye at the 4th of July celebration and picnic. I was reporting to basic training the following Monday. It was a sad but nice day. I arrived at Fort Knox, Kentucky for processing and orientation. My unit was then shipped to Fort Campbell, KY. Once there, I found that I enjoyed the whole military experience. I was made platoon standard bearer the first week of training, and by the time the 10 weeks were over, I was acting platoon corporal. That honor was given to a troop who managed to complete all phases of training successfully with no scores less than 90%. I and another troop both qualified and both received the award. I was writing home at least 3 times a week, and to Emily just as much. About 5 weeks into training, I got the dreaded Dear John letter. Emily wrote, "Dear Roger, I want you to understand that you are my closest and dearest friend. So I must tell you that I have found that I have strong feelings for someone else. That was why, because of this possibility, that I wanted you to not wait for me when we were apart. Ralph Peterson is a new student at school, and he asked me out to a movie. Because I was lonely, I said yes. We discovered a strong attraction. We have decided to become exclusive. I know this must hurt, but I feel that I should not have any further communication with you. If we bump into each other when you are home on leave, we may say hi, but I ask that you don't try to rekindle the feeling we have shared. You are the reason I am what I am, and I will always be grateful to you for being my friend and my first boyfriend. Emily. Well, that sucks rocks. I was hurt and confused. I also knew that I had to calm down and not respond to the anger and hurt that I felt at the time. I put off responding to the letter. I went home on leave after basic. I told my family about the hurt and the letter. I saw Emily often but never spoke to her. A couple of times I watched her start towards me, but when she did, I just turned away. I completed more than 2 years of my 3-year enlistment when I was injured in a training accident, and after rehabbing to the Army's satisfaction, was given a medical discharge. I was hurt when the truck I was in was hit by a drunk officer on the base. The officer was killed, the truck was overturned, and my left leg below the knee was crushed. In some ways, I was lucky because the bone above the knee was not damaged, and the joint was still usable. But I lost the leg about 4 inches below the knee. I was able to adjust to the prosthetic leg quickly and was discharged almost as if I had not been hurt at all. I received a disability rating of 70% and a decent pension from the injury. I had a slight limp that got more pronounced when I was physically tired. I was assigned rehab in Texas, at Fort Sam Houston. Because of this, my parents and my sisters could only see me once while I was there. They could not make the 1,200-mile trip by car, and it was expensive by air. The one time they came, the Red Cross got the tickets for them. Emily was not mentioned. I gave them a tentative date when I would be home. I had taken several college classes at the University of Maryland. They offered correspondence classes to active military people. So I went back home to prepare for the next phase of my life with enough credits to start on campus as a first-semester junior. When I got home, I was welcomed like a conquering hero. My parents, my sisters, and to my surprise, Emily, were all there to meet me at the airport. I hugged all of my family and acknowledged Emily with a handshake. She looked extremely hurt. Well, what did she expect? When I got to the car, my parents got in the front, my sisters brought their own car, and Emily started to get in my parents' car in the rear seat. I helped her in, closed the door, and told my dad I would meet them at the house as I was taking a cab. He was not happy but did not say anything. I actually got home before they did. I no longer had a key to the house, so I sat down on the porch. When Dad's car finally showed up, Emily was not in the car. Dad unlocked the door without a word and tried to push me in. That did not work well. I slipped and went down because he pushed on my right side and my prosthetic slipped on the porch. I was physically and mentally hurt again. I did not go in. I grabbed my bags and went out to the curb. I called a local hotel, got a room, then called a cab. I spent the next 3 days without talking to anyone from my family. Finally, I thought, maybe I was overreacting. I called home and talked to my sister. She told me that Dad was not talking to anyone in the family any time I was mentioned. She said that Mom was crying most of the time. She also said that Emily was trying to find me to apologize to me. I finally decided to get off the pot and called Emily's parents. I found out that Emily was not living at home anymore. They told me that they would give her my number. I explained what had happened and that I wanted to apologize to her for making a fool of myself. I thanked them and hung up. About 10 minutes later, my cell rang. It was my mother. She was blubbering and I could not understand her. I stopped her by shouting, "Stop!" The silence was deafening. I then said, "I'm sorry that I pissed everyone off, but you all knew that Emily sent me a Dear John, yet you saw fit to bring her to greet me without telling me. Yes, I overreacted, but I am still hurt because I still care for that woman. You saw fit to rub her in my face." I continued, "I did not mean to spoil your plans. but I also expected my family to be supportive of my feelings. My father, if he still feels he is my father. I heard a sharp gasp. As I said, if my father feels he is still my father, I expect an apology from him for the treatment at the door. He looked at me like I was a pile of dog shit that he just stepped in. I will not put up with that. I am an adult, but I still am allowed to have feelings. When will you be coming home? Mom asked. If I don't get an apology, I won't be coming at all. I have to be on campus in California for 6 days. If Dad does not choose to call, I will leave tomorrow to get there. Please don't go without seeing me and your sisters. I will pass your message on to your father, but you know how stiff-necked he can be. Your sisters tried to stop your dad and me from bringing Emily, but she seems so sorry to have kissed you off for the new kid in town. If you talk to her, please listen to her. She wants you to know just how big of a mistake she made. I hung up, and not even 10 seconds later, the phone rang. It was Emily. I said, Emily, you hurt me when you threw me away less than a month after I went into the army. I still should not have acted like the fool that I did. I am sorry I acted as I did. I'm so sorry for hurting you. I was wrong. I was foolish, and I was lonely. All of those are just excuses, and there's no reason I can think of that would justify my behavior. Then she stunned me and asked, Can I come and get you so we can talk? I think I would like that, as long as you don't try to ambush me as you did at the airport. All I heard was silence, and my cell phone screen showed call time. She hung up on me. My mother and sisters called several times. My father did not until I was on the way to the airport to get to campus in California. When I picked up and answered the phone, he started with, Do not ever come into my house again, you ungrateful bastard. I will not apologize for trying to make 2 people happy. Then he disconnected. When I got to the campus, I bought a new phone and number. I trashed the old one. I also bought a new laptop. I was pretty much set for money, 6 months in the hospital. 2+ years where the military provided almost everything. There were just not a lot of places to spend your money. I never got involved with the barracks gambling. I didn't drink, didn't smoke, and did not date at all. Therefore, I had almost 70% of my entire salary still available, and with the GI Bill, my pension, and my scholarships, I would be debt-free when I graduated. I used the laptop to email my sisters and my mother. The responses I got told me that I would be welcome home whenever I had a chance. My father tried to put his foot down once too often and was shown the door. My sisters were still in contact with Emily. They agreed not to give her my email address or my phone number. They did say that she had moved back home and that she had planned to take me to dinner at the restaurant where I had taken her on her first date. She was feeling guilty about the airport, but was still pissed about my ambush comment. I called my home the same day I got the email from home about my dad. Mom answered the phone, Roger, and then it was just crying. My sister Alice took the phone from her. She was joyful sounding as she playfully said, Who is the guy that made my mom cry? Then she started laughing. Roger, you are my big brother, I love you, but when are you coming home? I explained that the first class break was Thanksgiving, so I would be home then. I also told them that I would send them plane tickets and hotel reservations for the first 3-day weekend to come out. I had a very good piece of luck while I was in school. A bunch of the people in our dorm put money in a pool and bought Mega Million and Powerball tickets. We won a big pot. Each of the 11 people in the pool came out with about $15 million after taxes. I immediately put mine into a trust and set it up so I had an allowance that left me without any worries about my future. My college major was electrical engineering with a minor in computer programming. I had a job waiting for me with a company that was designing windmills for electrical generation. They were on the cutting edge of the technology. I was so impressed that I invested $1 million for 5% of the company. The shares were mine, but I could not sell to anyone except the other partners. I had been home several times, and I gave my sisters each a trust fund of their own for Christmas my college senior year and their high school senior year. That gave them all the money and more they would need for their college expenses. They went on to graduate debt-free also. The leftover funds would start them on a good life. I paid Mom's mortgage, she had divorced Dad, and he skipped out of his court-ordered obligations, so my help was needed. The last they heard of him, he had been arrested in Costa Rica for trying to beat a hooker to death. That was the last the family ever heard of him. The company transferred me to a facility that was about a 30-minute drive from my family. I had the trust buy a nice property about halfway in between work and family. It had a live-in, ready 5-bedroom new house of about 3,900 square feet on the place. The lot was over 5 acres. I got it cheap, as the family that had it built went bankrupt before the final building loan payment was due. The bank sold it to me for basically the remaining balance. It was fully furnished except for appliances, because the bank had used it as a setting for some of their commercials. Mom and the girls were given a debit card and told to finish it out. I also promised the girls that as long as they promised to behave, I would put up a pool house with a pool and a hot tub in. They squealed, and Mom asked if she was invited too. I laughed and said, "I said girls. Last I looked, you're a gorgeous girl." That got me a swat and a kiss on the cheek. It was on one of my trips home that I rediscovered Emily. I was in the grocery store picking up something my mother forgot for our dinner. Emily must have seen me. I was bent over getting something from the bottom shelf when she very gently bumped me in the butt with her cart. I jumped up straight. When I turned around to complain, that red-headed pixie was giggling behind her hand. When I raised my fist and shook it at her, she stuck her tongue at me. I just stood there and busted out laughing. I finished my selections as Em stayed with me. I commented on how good she looked. She said that after she graduated, she had tried college and found she did not fit in, and so left after getting her AS degree in accounting and bookkeeping. She got a job at a local fitness center. Seeing some of the women lose a lot of weight and tighten themselves up, she began working out, and she liked herself and how she looks now. I asked if she had plans for dinner that night. When she said no, I reached down, grabbed my phone, and asked Mom if I could bring a friend as a guest to dinner. Em's eyes started to mist up. I held the phone so Em could hear. Mom said yes and asked me if she knew who I was bringing. When I said I didn't think so, Em punched me playfully in the shoulder, and I put my hand over her mouth so she wouldn't give it away. Mom said to bring him on. When I came in the door, Emily stayed behind where Mom couldn't see her. When she asked where my guest was, Em jumped out and Mom screamed. My sisters ran out of their bedroom to see what the commotion was about, and they started screaming. When the screaming stopped, there was a major group hug with me trying to keep the pepper from causing my eyes to leak. When things settled down and dinner was over, I took Emily out to my car and I drove her back to her parents' house. On the way, I apologized for treating her badly. I also asked if it would be possible to take her to dinner and have a conversation to clear the air. I told her I was over the hurt, and as I had not heard anything about Ralph, I asked if it was over and if we might try to start over. Emily said she was free anytime I wanted to talk. Then she mentioned that Ralph turned out to be an abusive, controlling guy. It was over shortly after it started. She said that there had not been anyone more than once since then. She told me she would like to try again. Dinner went well. Em explained that Ralph came across as a nice guy, and he was for a couple of dates. Then he started to try to control Em by telling her who she could talk to at lunch and when they were on dates. The final straw was when Em had to go see an aunt during a family emergency. Ralph told her she couldn't go. She went as she should have. When she returned, Ralph tried to slap her in front of her parents. Her father paid for that. He grabbed Ralph by his belt and shirt collar and literally tossed him out on the grass. End Ralph. She went on to say that she had 2 additional dates in high school. One was for her senior prom when she went with her cousin. The other was a school dance when one of her classmates asked her nicely to go with him. When they arrived, the boy went off to talk with his friends and did not show up to take her home. In college, she was not one of the in crowd, and as there were 3 times as many girls as guys, she never got asked. I apologized again for how I acted at the airport. I told her that I had not dated anyone in the Army, and since I was considered a cripple on campus, I was not considered prime dating material. I had asked a couple of co-eds out, but after a particularly vicious turn down from a campus princess, I stopped asking. I asked Em if we could go out on a second first date. She said no. She said, "I thought this was our second first date, so we need a second date." We dated for a few months, and I found that my feelings were as strong or stronger for her, so on St. Valentine's Day, I asked her to marry me and gave her a ring. I asked her to not show the ring to her parents until after I talked to them. When we arrived at her parents' house, I asked them if I could talk to them in the kitchen. Emily kissed my cheek and whispered, "Thank you for asking them before we announced it." When I asked them, I got the usual questions about how I was going to support her. When I said I wasn't, that she told me she would support me. Em, who had been standing in the archway, screeched and ran over and started with playful slaps and punches on my chest. Future spouse abuse, the wedding's off. That statement earned me one more punch and a loving hug and a very long kiss. Her dad said, "Well, if she has that much money, why isn't she supporting us?" That got him a swat and a hug from each of his girls. When we left her house to go to mine, she was glued to my side. I had a new engineer car, pickup, and it had a bench seat, so she belted into the center seat belt and put her head on my shoulder. When we arrived at Mom's house, we walked in holding hands. I deliberately held her left hand so the ring wouldn't show. We stayed that way for a while we made small talk. Em got up to go to the bathroom, and it was as if we planned it. Sunlight caught the ring and flashed a rainbow up onto the wall. When she got back and things settled down, I was sort of pushed off to the side as four ladies went into wedding planning mode. The phone was put on speaker as Em's mother was called to set up a hen party to make the battle plans. The only part of the planning I was involved in was when my partners told me I had better get a lawyer and have him write a very good prenup. They knew that I had some money and told me I had better protect it. When I mentioned that to Em, she laughed and said that that was exactly what her father had said to her. It seems that the family emergency aunt left her a small trust fund. End of problem. The final document protected both trusts. I did the 3 wedding S's: shell out, shut up, and show up. Em was a beautiful bride, my sisters were co-maids of honor, and 2 of my army buddies who lived in close proximity were co-best men. We had a nice honeymoon in Oregon. We stayed for a week at the Timberline Lodge on Mint Hood. We saw the Columbia River windsurfers, some beautiful natural sights, the Pacific Ocean, and many other local sights. We had been married about a year when Em started talking about a new fitness trainer at the gym. She also began to make snide little digs about my sexual abilities. She also started to claim that she wasn't in the mood, had a headache, it was her period. I put up with it because I still loved the shrew. Then she started getting more and more mean and vicious with the comments. The last straw came when, in the middle of one of her nasty rants, she called me a cripple. I moved into one of the smaller bedrooms. I don't think Emily noticed, or else she didn't care. Finally, a couple of weeks later, I asked the guys at the shop to arrange a trip out of town that would take 3 or 4 days away from her so I could think. I also talked to a lawyer and started the paperwork for a divorce. I still loved the woman, but I could not live with the disrespect. The trip was to go to an industry show in Las Vegas. It was set up to start on a Monday and run through Thursday. Em was not happy I was going, but I told her to think about our marriage while I was away, as I was not going to put up with the disrespect anymore. I left for my flight on Sunday morning. The show was a bust, and I had not done anything except think of my marriage. I changed my return flight to late Tuesday morning, and that would put me back at my home airport at about 7 p.m. The flight was delayed at one of my transfer points, but it was still only 9 p.m. when I got in my car. I had taken my camera and had a lot of pictures and information on the parts of the show that I thought the company might look into. I drove home and pulled into my drive at about 9:45 to find the driveway blocked with a strange but familiar car. It definitely wasn't one of Em's family's or my family's car. It also wasn't one of our cars. I had a very bad feeling about this. I moved my car onto the lawn and removed the valve stem cores and flattened both rear tires on the sporty car in the drive. If it turned out innocent, I had a portable air compressor in the garage. I then grabbed my camera, my briefcase, and the keys and walked up to the side door around the sporty car. I saw a parking sticker for the building where Emily worked, and then I recognized the car. It belongs to a blonde god fitness trainer named Eric Nordquist. He was also an employee of the fitness center where Em worked. I walked into the house and followed the noises to the guest bedroom. I found my loving wife and Mr. Nordquist in a very naked and very compromising sexual position. I quietly took all of the pictures I would need and backed out. As I headed to the kitchen door, I saw the alarm panel. I set it and went out. I put the camera in my car and locked all of the doors. I waited about 15 minutes, and when Nordquist did not come out, I opened the kitchen door and waited for the alarm to go off. When the alarm sounded, I was standing in the doorway, and he came running out naked with a knife in his hand. It must have been in his clothes. He did not say anything as he ran towards me. I started to back up when my fake leg caught on the step and I fell down. The guy stabbed me in the side and used the butt end of the knife to punch me in the face. Emily must have gotten dressed, and when she saw who he was beating, told Eric to stop as I was her husband. About that time, the police arrived and saw me lying in the drive bleeding from the face and side. An ambulance was called, Eric was arrested, Emily was served, and after 4 operations and a couple of hundred stitches, my face was repaired. Sort of. I had the lawyer sue the company because their employee handbook was specific about non-fraternization with staff and customers. Emily was fired. I never had to use the pictures as the police report had all of the documentation of the affair through their statements. The affair had been going on for a couple of months. Eric got 10 to 20 years for attempted murder carrying a concealed weapon and assault with a deadly weapon. Emily not only got fired, but she was also disowned by her family and left town. I ended up with another couple of $1 million, and the fitness center closed. After a year of plastic surgery and endless pain, I called a halt and started to learn to live with the 2 major scars that the surgeries had not smoothed out. I had a scar from my left eye up to my hairline on the right side. The other scar ran from the left corner of my mouth down to the edge of my collarbone. While Eric was beating me with the knife, he managed to cut me where the scar from my mouth was. My sisters came to live with me and babied me while I was recovering. Jean stayed after I went back to work. I worked from home for almost a year until everyone told me that the scars did not bother them because they only saw the man inside. One of the guys from my office had met Jean when he delivered some drawings for a project while I was working from home. He asked me later if he could ask Jean out for a date. I knew he was a good egg, so I told him that it was up to Jean. They dated for about 6 months when John and Jean came to me holding hands. John asked if he could have my blessing to marry Jean. I, being no more of a fool than normal, said of course. Jean and John were married about 6 weeks later. A very funny thing happened at that wedding and reception. I was introduced to John's older sister, Camille. She was standing up with the wedding party, and I was acting the role of patriarch and giving Jean away. At the reception, Camille and I danced every dance I could manage with my fake leg. As I had been given a much better one from the VA, I lasted for all of the slow ones and only made a complete fool of myself with one fast dance. I had to go to the men's room after that and wipe the sweat from the socket. If I left it wet, I would get a blister. When I came back out, my pant leg was not fully down and my prosthesis was visible. As I said, it was better, but it was still mostly a steel rod with a fake foot. I walked across the room and sat down next to Camille. She had been smiling at me as I was coming toward her. She reached down and straightened my pant leg. She said, "Now I see where the limp came from. I'm a physical therapist, so I noticed it. No one else would." Then she leaned in close and uttered a gotcha. "Does that mean all of our kids will have a short left leg and a funny face?" Then her giggle caused me to come out with a complete belly laugh. We dated for several months, and when I asked her to marry me, she said yes. We have now been married for 8 years and have 3 as normal as kids. Just kids. Cammie Jean is 6, Susan Alice is 4, and Roger Jonathan is just starting to walk at 11 months. They all have normal length legs, but Roger walks with more of a limp motion than I do. When he walks more and better, he will probably drive me nuts trying to keep up with him. My work is now all from home, and I could not be happier. I need to end this story, as Camille is calling me from the bedroom. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.